This is Lolly Daskell from Lead From Within, the author of The Leadership Gap, and you're listening to Success is a Choice with Jamie Beckler.
Providing insights to help you grow your business, improve yourself, and add value to those around you. You're listening to the Success is a Choice podcast, where you get a peek into the lives of industry leaders as they share their stories with you.
Welcome to Success is a Choice podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Beckler, and today's guest is Bob Burg. Bob is the author of a number of books on sales, marketing, and influence, with total book sales of well over 1 million copies. His book, The Go-Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, has sold over 500,000 copies by itself. It has been translated into 21 different languages. Recently, it was also reissued in a new expanded edition with a foreword by Huffington Post founder and publisher Arianna Huffington. Bob is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system. He believes that the amount of money one can make is directly proportional to how many people one can serve. Bob is also an unapologetic animal fanatic and serves on the board of trustees of Furry Friends Adoption Clinic in his town of Jupiter, Florida. Bob, welcome to the show.
Jamie, thanks for having me. Fantastic to be with you.
So you're an unapologetic animal fanatic. What do you own pets? What are your favorite pets?
I am the daddy of a cat, and a cat only because I live in a condominium. And I still travel too much, and I live alone, so I can't really have dogs. But grew up with dogs. We always had 2 or 3 at a time, and I love all animals. I just adore all animals. But right now, my only pet child is a really cool cat. He's staring at me right now and wondering why I'm talking about him. And it's a lot of fun.
That's great. We have a local business or a local used bookstore, and they have a couple cats, and my son wants to go there every day after school. So we go over to the bookstore, and he plays with the cats every day.
That's awesome.
So that makes it so that I don't have to buy a cat. It's almost like renting, or for free. We're borrowing a cat every day. So, he's only 7, so he's not into the maintenance of animals, but. Our podcast is called Success is a Choice. And so I'd love to get your perspective. You've had a long, distinguished career. You've done a lot of things. What is kind of your definition of success, and how do you measure success throughout your career?
Well, I love the topic of success, and I've studied success, it seems like forever, or since I've been in business. And success, first of all, can be defined many different ways. On a very, very macro way, it can be defined as the accomplishment of a desired goal, right? I mean, if you, like I often feel, want to lose 20 pounds, and you give yourself 6 months to do it, let's just say, and you do it, well, you were successful in terms of doing that. Now, if I lost 18 pounds, I was 90% successful. So we can measure it that way. Success can be the basketball team that, and I know your background is as a coach, and it could be that the team that won the game, they were successful. The team that lost was not successful. On the other hand, if you have a team, even the one who lost, but they played a lot better than their potential, not their potential, but what they had been playing at, and they're coming closer to living up to their potential, they were successful in terms of their effort, although they weren't successful in terms of the one loss. So it can be defined in different ways. John Wooden, the Hall of Fame coach, he defines success as peace of mind that is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you did your best to become the best that you are capable of becoming. I loved that. Now, The Science of Getting Rich, Wallace D. Wattles wrote, the person who owns all he or she wants for the living of all the life they are capable of living is successful. And just one of my other favorites. One of my other favorites was Earl Nightingale from Lead the Field. He defined success as the progressive realization of a worthwhile dream or goal. And you take this apart a little bit, it's quite brilliant. Success, as Mr. Nightingale put it, is the progressive realization. In other words, so long as you're progressing forward, right, you're successful. But he also said of a worthwhile dream or goal. In other words, being the top drug dealer, right, on your block. That's not a worthy goal. You would not be successful if you were doing that. My definition, and the one I use, probably resembles Coach Wooden's more than anything else. I define success as a feeling of peace of mind and genuine happiness based on having lived up to one's potential. In other words, to the degree you've lived up to your potential, that's the degree that you're successful. And I think what it really comes down to, Jamie, is happiness. If you are happy, you are successful. And what's happiness? Happiness is an ongoing feeling of joy and peace of mind, the result of living congruently with one's values.
That's good. That's good. So as you take that kind of that approach to your definition of success, looking back on your career, what are some of the things that stand out to you that you're most proud of?
I think that perhaps I've been able to bring value to the marketplace in a way that provided people with information that helped them be more successful themselves. And hopefully that I was able to do it in a way that even people who may not have felt confident that they had that within them was able to accomplish things based on some of my teachings. And I probably feel best about that than anything else.
Well, we've all heard the phrase, the go-getter, or someone's a go-getter, but you kind of put a twist on this with your best-selling book. It's entitled The Go-Giver. What was kind of the genesis of that book, and how did you come up with that title? And, what's kind of the premise of that book?
Well, those are great questions. And I did title it as a twist on the go-getter, because the go-getter is something that it comes to people's mind, and the go-giver is a little bit of in marketing, we would call it a pattern interrupt. Kind of makes you stop and think, what does he mean by that? Yet, a go-getter is not the opposite of a go-giver. We love go-getters, right? Because go-getters take action. Go-getters get things done. You and I are business people. Most of the people listening on this, they're business people, they're educators, they're coaches, they're people who are, and we all know that you can have the best thoughts, the nicest ideas, certainly the best of intention, but unless action is put into the mix, nothing's going to happen. So we love go-getters. Now, the neat thing is there is no natural division between a go-getter and a go-giver. Many go-getters, people of action, are also go-givers. Go-givers are people who, and this is really the premise of the story, of the philosophy, if you will. It's understanding that shifting your focus, and this is the key, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing value to others. That doing so is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's actually the most financially profitable way as well. So if you have a go-getter, person who takes action, and the person who's a go-giver, who is a person focused on creating value for others, whether it's those they lead, those they're selling to, those they're in relationship, what have you, then you've got a great combination. Now, the opposite of a go-giver then is a go-taker. And that's the person, Jamie, who feels entitled, if you will, to take without having added value to the other person, to the situation, to the environment that they're working within. And they're very I-focused, they're me-focused, and they tend to be very frustrated because they rarely achieve the kind of level of success they think they deserve. And even sometimes when they do, it's typically not sustainable because it has not been built on a true foundation.
Well, speaking of that, giving and taking and that kind of plays into influence. And we talk about a lot of leadership and influence principles on this show. One of the principles in your book revolves around influence. How does a go-giver create this influence both personally and in their business?
Sure. And as usual, I always love to start with definitions. And we look at influence. And first, John Maxwell, the great leadership authority. I know you're an associate of John's. He's often said that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I always love that. Now, how do I define influence? I define influence on a very basic level as simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. Now, that's the definition. I don't believe that that's the essence of influence. The essence of influence is pull as opposed to push. Or as I love to ask leadership people in an audience, how far can you push a rope? And we all laugh because we know the answer is not very, right? Not very far, at least not very fast or very effectively. You rarely hear people say something, wow, that Jamie, he is so influential. He has a lot of push with people. No, they'd say Jamie is very influential. He has a lot of pull with people, because that's what influence is. Influence is pull. It's an attraction. Great influencers attract people to themselves first, and only then to their ideas. Now, if we ask, what's an example of pull? Well, it's understanding, I think, on a very foundational level, on a heart level, what I believe was the foundational premise of Dale Carnegie's classic bestseller, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And this is where Mr. Carnegie wrote, ultimately, people do things for their reasons, not our reasons. So the great influencer, Jamie, is always self-questioning their own motives. They're asking themselves questions such as, how does what I'm asking this other person to do, how does it align with their goals, with their wants, their needs, their desires, with their values? And when asking ourselves these questions thoughtfully, intelligently, genuinely, authentically, not as a way to manipulate another human being into doing our will, but as a way to help build everyone in the process, now we've come a lot closer to earning people's commitment rather than depending upon compliance.
So a person in our life that has a lot of influence is sometimes a mentor, and you received a piece of advice, kind of a golden nugget from a drive-by mentor, so to speak. Tell our audience a little bit about that golden nugget that totally shifted your perspective and played a big role in your career and your success.
Yeah, I love the term drive-by mentor, too. It's something that one of my mentors, Dondi Scumaci, a great speaker, leader, and mentor, something we coined as one of those kinds of people who they just happen to show up. You may not have ever met them before. You may not have ever met them. You may not have a close relationship with them. Whatever. They happen to have been there at just the right time and said just the right thing when you were open to listening, and it made a significant difference in your life. We call those people drive-by mentors. And I was in sales. I was doing well, but I certainly wasn't realizing my potential. I was sort of like Joe in The Go-Giver, right? That kind of guy who had a lot of potential, but was not coming close to living up to it. And I remember coming back to the office one day after really, not losing a sale that I should have had, and it was really my fault. And I looked kind of discouraged, I guess, because he said, "Burg, can I give you some advice?" And I said, yes, absolutely. Now, this is a guy, he was an older guy. I know he was just about to retire. He was not even in sales, by the way. I think he was in the engineering department or something. So it was just really, and he said, "Burg, if you want to make a lot of money in business," actually he says, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he continued, you'll get a reward. And that reward will come in the form of money, and you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, he said, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It's not the target itself. Your target is serving others. And that was a watershed point for me, because it was at that time that I then realized, I realized that great leadership is never about the leader. Great influence is never about the influencer, and great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. It's always about the other person. It's about those people whose lives you choose to touch, whose lives you choose to add value to.
So does that kind of play into, there was a line in the book that says, when an entrepreneur or a businessman or a salesman says, does it make money, that's not a bad question. It's just a bad first question.
Right. It's actually, will something make money is a great question because, in business, you need to make money, right? And so to deny that or to make it make it unimportant, well, that wouldn't be realistic either. That would be counterproductive. No, will it make money is a great question. It's just a bad first question. Here's why. Because we've got to understand that and I'll put this in the sales vernacular, no one's going to buy from us because we have a quota to meet. Right? They're not going to buy from us because we need the money. And we'll take it a step further. They're not going to buy from us because we're a really nice person who believes in our product. No, people are going to buy from us, or they're going to lead, or they're going to follow us, or they're going to be influenced by us, or they're going to want to be in relay because they believe they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. So with that in mind, Jamie, if you were to say, if your first question regarding a product or service you're selling or something you're inventing or something you're wanting to bring to the world, if your first question is, will it make money? You're looking in the rear view mirror because that person, your marketplace doesn't care about whether it's going to make money. That's not their concern. But if you start with, does it serve? Will it bring value to the marketplace? Are there people who would want to buy that either now or can a market be created? Is it something that serves? Will it bring value? If you begin with that and the answer is no, don't bother. If you begin with that and the answer is yes, now you need to ask, will it also make money? Because it can be the best product or service in the world that people love, but if it doesn't make money, then it's just a hobby. It's not a business. And while hobbies are wonderful, we should all have them, that's not what we're talking about here. So no, asking if something will make money, again, as you said, it's an important question. It's a good question. It's just a bad first question.
We'll get right back to this great conversation with Bob Burg in a moment. Bob has written a number of great books, with his most successful being The Go-Giver. And our friends at Audible are offering our listeners a free audiobook download and trial membership through the website audibletrial.com/success is a choice. Once you are at that page, just type in Bob Burg's name in the search box and you can download one of his books for free if you've never had a subscription to Audible before. Once again, that address is audibletrial.com/success is a choice. And now back to our conversation with Bob Burg. Well, going back to your quote-unquote drive-by mentor, when he said target, the target isn't making money, the target is serving. As people, a lot of people are either asked to be mentors or are mentors of others, or a lot of us are having our own mentors. What kind of advice would you have when looking for mentors?
Well, I think it's to approach respectfully and understand that a mentor-protege relationship is just that. It's a relationship, and it takes time usually to develop. I think the biggest mistake I see people make in searching out a mentor, and I think it's a great idea to seek out a mentor. Mentors can cut your learning curve, by years, of course, by sharing experiences they have and overall knowledge and wisdom. But what I see a lot of times, and this is maybe part of the instant gratification culture we've come to be, I don't know, but it's almost like they'll reach out to someone who they admire, respect, and they'll say, hey, will you be my mentor? Or I need a mentor. Will you mentor me? And I think, not that never works and not that you can't do that. And sometimes it might, but I don't think it usually is very productive. Most mentors, people you'd like to have mentor you, there's others who want them to mentor them. They're busy people. But I think if you do it a different way, I think if you reach out in a way that's respectful, and it can be in person, it can be on the phone, it can be via email, it can be on social media, what have you. But I think if you say to this person, I respect your work so much. I'm in the process of, beginning a business or on the beginning part of my career or whatever your situation is, and say something like, I understand you're very busy, so if time does not permit, I totally understand. I'm wondering, though, if I may ask you one or two very specific questions. Now, when you ask like that, they're a lot more likely to say, absolutely, go ahead. Because first, you've shown them that this is not something that you feel entitled to. You place high value on them and their time, and you're not asking for them to marry you, right? You're just asking for a date, right? Can you ask a couple of very specific questions? Most people, not everyone, but most people are fine with that. And so then and by the way, of course, research them, know as much as you can about them, because you don't want to ask a question that you could easily know, right, by just researching them. That would have the opposite effect. But once you ask them, then they give you their advice and you thank them very much for it. I would write a handwritten personal note to them that day, not a text, not an email, a handwritten personalized note thanking them for their time and how valuable their advice was and how you look forward to putting it into action right away, and you'll let them know how things are progressing. I would even, take the next step. Maybe you found on the internet that they serve on the board of their local animal shelter or something, and maybe make a small, it doesn't have to be big, but just a small donation to the shelter in their name, and it will get back to them. And you're not doing it to kiss up or anything like that, but just, again, to let them know that you take this very seriously, you place high value on their time and energy, and that you want to, in some way be able to add value to them and their values. And then, again, 3 weeks later, a month later, maybe you follow up, let them know what's going on, ask another question, and eventually a mentor-protege relationship begins to develop if it's supposed to. And I think as you do that, you're going to find you'll eventually connect with that right person.
Now, you had a distinguished career like we've talked about. We also talked about John Maxwell earlier, and he has a couple books. One is, he has hundreds of books, but he has a couple that are interesting books in terms of failure. One is called Failing Forward, and one is called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. What is one or two of your favorite failures that you've had?
It's interesting because when you talk about favorite failures, I'd have to say failures that helped me learn a lesson that was very valuable, even though I didn't appreciate it at the time, which I think is fairly natural. One big mistake I made, which is a real failure, and this was back in the, I think, mid to late 90s, and it was just as the internet was starting to really become a thing. Technology was taking on a whole new life of its own. And I had built a very successful speaking and writing practice, and I'm not very technically oriented by nature. And I really thought, the heck with this technology stuff. I'm going to keep doing things the way I am. And I've got enough, clients out there and enough of a platform and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? I found out I was absolutely wrong. And my business just dried up. I did not change when I needed to change. And it's an interesting thing because there's what I call a political correctness within the personal development movement. And what I mean by that is sometimes, there's this thing where everything's supposed to be just wonderful and great. Like you take change, all right? Change is great. Oh, man, change is the most wonderful thing. Embrace change. Well, you know what? I hate change. I just do. I get things, I do things a certain way and I get them done and I have it set and I don't want to change. So I don't have to like change, but I have to change. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that we have to like something. And that's what I mean about the politically correct. I hate change. I hate failure. I hate being told no. But that's just part of life. It's part of the game. It's part of what we have to do in order to get to where we want to be. And so the failure was I failed to change and came to understand after a couple of years of having to rebuild my business that, I wasn't above having to change. And so now, while I still don't by my nature like change, I strategically look at the places where I need to change and adapt. And I get with people who can help me do that and do it. So that was that would be, I guess, a favorite failure, if you want to say that.
Yeah, we're always trying to learn. We're always trying to, so we don't repeat some of those same mistakes. But, a lot of times change is inevitable, but growth is optional. And what are some things that you're doing to continue to grow and develop as a leader?
Oh, I read voraciously. I listen to others. I listen to those who I respect. I listen to those I agree with, and I listen to those I disagree with, because I think we need to be able to hear all sides. in order to grow, in order to learn. And I think there's too much these days, especially in the political context, where people are basically just listening to those talking heads or reading the books or what have you, or reading the tweets or connecting with people who they just are so in agreement with that, they're not learning. They're just simply having their current beliefs okayed and acknowledged. So I think in order to learn, we need to stay learnable. We need to stay in a learning frame and not think we know it all.
Are there some books that you're reading right now or that you would highly recommend that you've read recently?
Oh, gosh. That's such a tough question since I'm always reading, but let me just a couple. I'm about 3/4 of the way through Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of Titans. It's an absolutely wonderful, wonderful book. It's excerpts from people on his podcast, and I mean, this is just a fantastic book. Another book, and I've got about 3 pages left. I've been working on this book for about 3 months. It's called, because every chapter is so delicious and so amazing that it's, I just have gone through it, highlighting, underlying everything. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Which has been out there for a few years now, and it had been on my list to read, and finally got it, and boy, am I glad I did. Principles by Ray Dalio. I read his book when it was an online book. Now I've got it in the hardcover fashion, and he's added some things to it. So, all these books are just one of the best books I ever read. And I continually refer to this book as a book by Harry Browne, Browne. It was published after he died several years ago. It's called The Secret of Selling Anything. He did not title that, but that was the title that the independent publisher it was sold to gave it. But it's a wonderful book. It's really on the power of this book by Harry Browne is on understanding and respecting human nature. And the sales part is simply tying in selling to understanding human nature. And by the way, where he says the secret of selling, and he says the secret of selling need not be a secret. Here's the secret. Discover what people want and help them get it. Right? That's selling. And so discover what the other person wants and help them get it. So that's a fantastic book that not many people know about.
And that's a great concept that we have to constantly remember. And you mentioned Dale Carnegie's book earlier, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he has a line in there that he talks about how when he goes fishing,
right,
he loves strawberries and cream, but fish don't like strawberries and cream. They like worms. Right. I don't like worms. But if I want to catch fish, I need to use worms and not strawberries and cream. So, yeah, exactly. Amazing thought there. And Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss. You mentioned that as one of the books you're reading now, and he has a great question in that book. What's one item you've purchased in the past 6 months or in your lifetime that's under $100 that's been the biggest positive impact on your life? What would you have an answer to that question?
Oh, to me, that's one of the easiest ones. It's books.
Okay.
Books are generally under $100, and they add so much value to one's life. It's, to begin a library is the advice I give any young person. Invest your money in a library and treasure those books.
Is there a productivity tool or an app or a piece of software that you would have a hard time doing without?
Well, personally, I wouldn't, but my business partner, Kathy Tajanel, who really runs that aspect of the business, she uses Infusionsoft. So I guess we use Infusionsoft. And while it's somewhat complicated, not always the most user-friendly tool, it's very, very helpful and productive for what we do.
Well, Bob, do you have a parting quote or a piece of wisdom you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I would say that when it comes right down to it, the biggest aspect of leadership, success in sales, success when dealing with other human beings is all about mastering people skills. It's so important. It's the differentiator. It's the difference maker. And I think that the single greatest people skill is a highly developed and authentic interest in the other person. And if you can remember that, you're 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
Where can people connect with you or learn more about what you're doing?
The best place is thegogiver.com. In this case, it's without the hyphen, so it's just thegogiver.com. And pretty much everything is there, including the books where they can read a chapter and see if they like it. My podcast is there. They can join our Go Giver Way movement. They can look at our Go Giver Sales Academy live course. So we invite them there and have fun.
Well, we appreciate your time today. We know you're really busy, but the insights you provided, I took a lot of notes while I was listening. So thanks so much for your time and your insights today, Bob.
Jamie, I love the work you're doing. Keep it up, man. You're adding so much value to the lives of so many people.
Bob provided us with some thought-provoking insights today. Remember that you can grab a free audio download of his best-selling book, The Go Giver, by going to the website audibletrial.com/Success is a Choice podcast. Also, please take just a quick second to hit that little subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. Thanks so much. And until next time, remember that success is a choice. What choice will you make today?